Warning, electricity is inherently dangerous. This video is for instruction only. Please don't die. Okay, so I give you a death warning and then I tell you, hey, try this. Danger warning aside, the job itself is not actually that complicated or dangerous if you have the proper precautions. The purpose of this video is to give you that background information you need so that you can do this job yourself. By following everything I go over in this video, I've never died before. If you intend on putting a dimmer on something like a ceiling fan, check the owner's manual. I have a ceiling fan that does not work with dimmer switches. Number two, you want to know what kind of bulb you're working with. So you have incandescent, CFLs, or compact fluorescents, and you have LEDs. If you're buying for an old school incandescent bulb, good news, you can buy something cheap like this. I'll put a link in the description. If you're buying a dimmer switch just for LEDs, you're gonna have to buy something more expensive like this. Now I'm putting this here because I don't like the cheap versions. You're saving money, get the nicer one. When you're buying a dimmer, you may wanna make sure that you have the same sized faceplate. They come in different sizes. They even come with oversized ones that hide extra holes in the wall. But this also applies to when you're buying multi-switched boxes. Make sure you have the correct faceplate or you buy the correct faceplate. Okie doke. So, the tools you're gonna need to do this job. You're gonna need screwdrivers. You want Phillips head and flathead. My preferred go-to for a screwdriver is one of these. It lets you pull out the shank and you can pick larger or smaller heads. You can also pull out the head and you have both Phillips and flathead. Next, you're gonna need some pliers. Needle nose pliers are best. I got these fancy ones that are bent. Look at that. You can get around it by using any set of pliers. They work. 2 pairs of pliers is better. You're holding the wire with one set of pliers and then you're twisting the wire with the other. In addition to that, you need electrical tape. You can get away without electrical tape. I don't recommend it, but you could. And lastly, a very cheap insurance policy. One of these non-contact voltage testers is going to see whether or not there's any electricity in the wire you're about to touch. I don't know about you, but $8 to $15 doesn't seem like that much money to spend when it comes to making sure you don't get electrocuted. Before you go to remove your switch, it's good to know what possible connections are in your wall so you can remove it. So here are some methods of connecting switches. We're going to look at screws, quick connections, and wire nuts. Method 1 is with these screws. You want to put a hook at the end of your line. To do that, just get your needle nose pliers, grab at the end, and twist around. There's a certain way that you're supposed to go around the screw. So once you make your loop, you're going to hook it so it goes clockwise around the screw. When I tighten it, it's going to pull the wire along the screw. The second way of connecting a wire would be with these little holes. For this, all you have to do is trim the wire if it's more than ½ an inch. That's a much better length. When I shove it in, it gets stuck. To release the old wire, you just shove something in there and that'll let you pull it out. Wire nuts come in a variety of sizes, but the concept is the same. On the inside there are threads, which are used to cut into the copper and hold them in place. Your light switch probably comes with these. If not, you can buy a variety pack for like $5 at Harbor Freight Tools. Here's a non-LED dimmer switch that uses wire nuts. Since these wires are stranded, you want to start off by twisting the ends so they look like this. This is representing the solid wires that come from your wall. What you're going to do is wrap your wire around it so the tips are right on each other. If you tighten the wire nut and there's extra copper exposed, you're going to have to trim down the wire. You want the ends to match up nicely like this. Then twist on your wire nut until it stops. Pull on the wires to make sure that they don't come loose. This is not essential, but for extra protection, you can wrap the wires from the base in a counterclockwise motion to wrap the wire nut. We go counterclockwise because as this electrical tape gets older and it contracts, it's going to twist it in a clockwise motion, tightening it to our wire. After we have our connections, what we want to do is tighten our screws all the way if we weren't using them. And then we want to wrap it with electrical tape. Once around is fine. Here we have to learn about wiring a little bit. So if you're working with a non-LED light switch, great news. You have two wires and most of the time there's no differentiation between these two. You connect one to one of the wires from the switch, the other one to the other wire that went to the switch, and attach any ground wires that there are. You're done. If you're working with LEDs, we have to be more cautious. There's more sophisticated electronics in there. You have to know which wire is providing the electricity from the house and which wire is then connecting to the light that you are going to be dimming. So here's a very basic representation of what's going on in your wall. You have a black and a white wire coming from your fuse box or breaker box. One of those lines is neutral, one of them is live. The live wire is going to be connected to your switch. So the switch cuts off that constant electricity that's coming from your house. The switch is then going to connect to the live end of your light, and then the circuit is completed through your light back to the breaker box. We need to determine which one is this line and which wire is this line. This diagram is showing me the red line connects to the load and the black line connects to line. If you're lucky, you can identify these lines using the colors of the screws. Gold screws should be your black or live line, silver screws should go to your load. But this also has a green screw. Your dimmer switch may have a green wire instead. And the green screw is meant for ground. You don't need to connect this to anything if you have a metal box, or you connect it to bare copper wire if you have a plastic box. Help! I don't know which one of these is going to the power supply and which one is going to the light. Well, there's a trick for that. After you've shut off the breaker, expose the wires so you can see them. With the power off, you'll probably have to pull your switch out like this. Then what you have to do is turn the power back on. So you can see it's working. Now with the light switch off, I'm going to get my non-contact voltage tester. I'm going to see which wire currently has power. Here my black wire color doesn't, and the white one does. This is telling me that the white wire is connected to power and the black wire is connected to the lights. You can use this to distinguish which wire is which when you go to wire your dimmer switch. Turning off your breaker is essential. In order to do this safely, it cuts the power so that you can't be electrocuted. Now, if you have a breaker panel that is not clearly labeled like me, you may find that you get a lot of steps. However, I've got some tricks for that. Your first trick is very simple, but you need speakers or a smart device like a Google Home. Find an outlet that's near the switch that you want to change. You're going to connect your speakers to that outlet. Crank some music and listen to hear if the music cuts out while you're flipping breakers. Option number 2 can be done by yourself as well. For that, you're going to need 2 devices that have webcam functionality. Basically, you're going to set up a video session with yourself with one camera looking at your light. Once the light is off, you're done. Alright, so we're going to open this up now. If you have a fairly powerful kitchen magnet or a magnet on your watch, that's really going to help when you need to hold your screws because you don't want to lose them. To remove the faceplate, you're just going to remove 2 screws. Once you've finished unscrewing those 2 screws, you're going to have 2 more. Now, this is live. I don't recommend this. And these screws, if I touch them, I'm in for a bad day. That's why it's good to have some electrical tape so that you can cover those screws. You pull it out, voltage tester, nothing, good. So with this particular model, we need to pop the tabs like we did before. You just need to remove the wires that are already in the switch. Now connect your new switch using one of the methods from before. I connected with screws. Don't forget to protect with electrical tape. Continue reversing the process. Add your screws to hold in the switch, and then add your screws for the faceplate. So I'm using this Lutron. If you have a 1-gang box, as in 1 switch, you do not need to remove these tabs. If you have several switches, you'll need to remove these tabs. You do that with pliers and you twist them off. To connect this, I need to carefully use my diagram. Using my trick, I figured out which wire goes to the light and which wire goes to power, or the breaker box. In my case, the black wire is the live wire that goes to the breaker box, and the white wire that comes from the wall goes to the light and is my load. Cap this line if it's a metal box, or connect your green line to the copper wire from your wall. After using wire nuts to connect, pull on all your connections before finishing up. Make sure they're tight. Now carefully shove all your wires into the box and close it up with screws. Switches have slots for the screws so you can shimmy them around and make the switch straight. Now with the power on, we need to do an adjustment. Right now this is dimmed all the way. This is all the way on. Not a big change here. Every LED dimmer is going to come with some kind of a way of adjusting. This one uses a lever. I've also seen wheels, and basically there's a positive and a negative. The positive means brighter, the negative means dimmer. If it starts to flicker, you're too low. Set it as low as you can to get the maximum variation on your dimmer. Truth be told, this is a 5 to 10 minute job if you know what you're doing. First off, you want to kill the breaker, make sure it's dead, and use that non-contact voltage tester to make sure that you don't get electrocuted and die. Use it as many times as you want. Number 2, you're going to just remove 4 screws and get that old switch out of there. Then you're going to disconnect all the wires that are connected to the old switch. If you have a basic dimmer, you're just going to use those wires to connect to your new dimmer. If you have an LED dimmer, you need to make sure you know which one is your line and which one is your load. You can use that trick to find out. Then you're going to make sure everything's secure, test them, put it back in the box using the 4 screws to connect it. Learning about electricity is intimidating, but I hope that this video can give you the courage you need to get started on a project yourself. And if you still have questions or comments, electricity's scary, I get it. Post it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.